Welcome to Birds of a Feather Microcast, where we explore how relationships shape our success, and we dive into the stories about the people who transform our lives. Now, I'm really excited to announce today's guest. His name is Chris Luiz, CEO of Scout InsurTech, a community that aligns insurance leaders with talent, services, and technology, and it's become a gold standard for the industry. Now, Chris has got a really impressive background that I got a chance to learn about, but he's done everything from work in Fortune 500s to launching his own startups, and has a depth of experience across both product and consulting and data science and customer success. Chris, from day one in our very first conversation, it was abundantly clear that investing in relationships has been, a marquee focus of yours. It's been key to your success. You've been just kind and generous with your time with me, making introductions, and I really appreciate you being here with me today. And I'm sure everyone that's listening is going to learn a lot. So thanks for rocking.
Yeah, Jeremy, thanks so much for having me today. As you mentioned, relationships I think are incredibly important, and happy to go into some instances of that as we have a discussion today.
Amazing. All right. So I love to kind of start these off with, for the folks that are listening out there, just to hear a little bit more about your journey, right? So maybe, a high level, going from corporate to launching Scout, and what is it, the real bullseye that you're focused on for today?
That's a great question. So I, as you mentioned before, I've had a sort of a mixed career. I've done a whole bunch of different things. And going from a large corporation to, for a few years, a very small company, Series Seed and Series A while I was there, startup, and now back to something that is Scout, bootstrapped. Why did I do it? I took made a really intentional change when I left the corporate job that I had, which was at Progressive Insurance, which was interesting in that I got to do a lot of internal consulting, which I learned a lot about the business and got to meet a lot of people there. But I wanted a role that faced the industry that I knew I was going to spend my career in, and that's insurance. So I took a really intentional move to a smaller company, and with all the things that come with that, to face the market for a number of years and meet as many people as I possibly could. I'd been running the Cleveland area group of InsurTech Ohio for a couple of years as well as part of that. I've just found that for myself, building relationships, strong long-term relationships with people, you can't do that as well behind a screen, and you need to have a lot of conversations, and it enabled me to do that. And those decisions enabled me to do what I do with Scout today, which is building an ecosystem of folks all across the industry for mutual benefit.
I love that. Ecosystem, I think, is the key word. And when you and I were first talking about Scout, I was really keying in on the events that you throw. But as I started to get to know you better and kind of what the vision is there's so much more fabric behind the event, and the events are maybe like a beachhead for people to get together. But I'm really excited to go a little bit deeper into the ecosystem and what that looks like. Before we go any further, what's one thing you're really excited about with Scout right now? Obviously, you got momentum going, right? So things are cooking. What are you fired up about?
I am really excited about our ability to broaden the scope of our programs over the next year or two. And some of the things that we do now, I run a very light accelerator program. I want to really bolster that and turn it on. I want to be able to assist early stage companies in understanding how to do business in our industry, and to prevent them from wasting time and money in ways that they don't, that are not beneficial to them. To tie that back, I always think of the way I give back, the way I serve, in being the person that I needed, but I didn't have. And I had some of these problems selling in other industries, and now I'm well positioned to understand and help folks do really well here. So broadly, there's a lot of delivery underneath that and a lot of things, but broadly, that's what I'm most excited about.
That's super cool. I was talking actually to Sarah, who introduced you and I earlier today, and we were talking about adding more to the ecosystem and to the people around us than we subtract. And your point about being that person that, we want to be, I think if everybody just like put a little extra into the people that they care about, or even in some cases, total strangers, man, what a wonderful world this would be. And I think that's kind of like the deep rooted personal why for me behind Feather is like, if we are intentional, thoughtful, accountable, and effective in developing relationships, then we can live better quality lives, because the quality of our connections in a lot of cases build and breed amazing experiences. Anyway, I love what you're saying there. And I wanted to maybe, because I actually just don't know this, and I think it'd be great to hear your thoughts. Can you tell me maybe what's the story behind the name Scout? Like, how did you come up with that? Like, what's the story there?
Well, so my partner came up with it, so I can't claim that it's all mine. But it might be helpful in mapping out how I interact with my corporate partners. So my corporate partners, in many cases, and not all, I was going to say practically all, but in many cases, are multi-billion-dollar-a-year companies. They have the capital and reach to do practically anything that they want. They're limited by the ability to move quickly and bureaucracy and all of the things that happen inside of a large company. What they can't do is be everywhere and see everything. So it's really challenging for them to discover what's best suited for them for a smaller problem at any one point in time. And the way that typically happens, that they run into technology is not very intentional. It's that somebody happened to send an email at the right time, or somebody's employee bumped into somebody at an event. And that's how that company gets into one of these large corporations. It's serendipity, which is great, and there should be some of that. However, that doesn't best serve the market. That's not the best fit match. So most of these companies don't have the bandwidth to go and talk to hundreds of companies a year and understand that there's 8 or 9 that do explicitly what they're looking for. 2 of them are far enough along. 1 was invested in by a competitor and is thus not suitable based on corporate requirements. I help them do that. We are their scouting programs. I don't try to replace these innovation strategy, corp dev or corp venture teams. What I do is I extend them in a way that is challenging for them to do by a consequence of the structure of their company.
So to like double click on that a little bit, it sounds like to me that you guys are curating the right interactions and the right timing. And like you mentioned, there's something amazing about life and the magic of these experiences just kind of like serendipitously happening. But there's also not enough time in the day, and there's way too many problems that need to get solved. And so if I'm picking up what you're putting down, you guys are the advocate on behalf of your partners to go and match make to the right people and build those right connections, vet them out, make sure things are happening, and create like mutual value across the value chain there. Is that an accurate understanding?
Yeah, that's right. And the maybe interesting is the word I was going to use, but maybe that's not especially the correct word here. Sometimes I get pushback from the earlier stage companies when they ask me for an introduction to all these major carriers, and I say no. And I say no because if it's not the right time, it's not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about being the wrong product, the wrong fit, but it's not the right time. They haven't asked for it yet. It's not going to be an easy process. They're going to be pushing things uphill. So it's not only helping the large corporates understand how to interact with earlier stage technology companies better, more effectively. It's also in helping and saving the opportunity cost of an early stage company interacting with a large corporate that's not going to make a decision for 9 or 18 months, and you're on the hook the whole time. So I live both sides of it, on buying and selling side. So I like to educate in both directions.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And at the end of the day, like, and sometimes just delivering the hard news in a lot of cases is what builds the reputation for being trusted. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about, especially in terms of relationship intelligence, like this is the evolution of EQ, of emotional intelligence, wherein we're talking about multiple people and how those people interact together, and what are the things that these people are doing or these companies are doing for each other to go and level up the relationship, right? How aware of that are we? Having somebody that, sits not just in the middle, but is making sure that this is the right fit in the right places at the right time. I think it no doubt has obviously why you're building a ton of trust in the community. But I would imagine it wasn't like that all day, every day. You got to start somewhere. I mean, I know you've got a history of being a thought leader. You've got a background in, mega companies, going through the things and doing the right things as well. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about the early days of building Scout, like as you were building community, right? What were some of the things that were challenging, and how did you get the ball rolling there?
Oh yeah, you bet. I get the, and I might have told you this before, but I have a somewhat unique ability to tell folks that I started a company on accident by buying beers for people. We started throwing social events because we wanted to meet more folks that were local, that were doing interesting things in insurance. And that began in Columbus. And I founded the Cleveland group. We had somebody start a group in Cincinnati, and now we have events in a number of other cities. We've had several in Detroit, Chicago, where we've done a couple things in Nashville. We're going to stand up a group in Indianapolis. What we started as is a group of people with common interests that chose to spend time with each other. And what I asked is how I could continue to serve that community. And some of the things that we got was like, well, we can bring more visibility to the companies that we are with. So we have a variety of interview series where we do that. We could bring larger groups together and do a little bit more promotion. So we have, in those cities that we operate in, we have larger events, 100 to 150 people. Most of our events are 10 to 15 people. They're quite intimate. And we often have a conversation topic too that we center around for part of that meeting to focus folks, but also to make sure that they're interacting in such a way that drives long-term value and also shared experience. And they asked for a conference, and we frankly were like, that sounds like a lot of work. We don't know that we want to do that. We acquiesced, and now we're 3 years into, though at the first year we weren't, I don't know that I'd call it a conference. It was a happy hour with some people on stage. Though we had 170 people. And this year we had 55 companies on stage. More than half of the folks that came into town were from outside of the state, and about 5% were from outside of the country. So we went from a couple of buddies in insurance, drinking beers together, to doing something, to building what is going to become a destination level, international destination level insurance technology conference in Columbus, Ohio. And as you mentioned this before, the events are probably the most visible thing to people. But it's not about events. We build community. We don't even sell events-based sponsorships. Everything is membership-based. I say no to memberships for folks if I don't believe that they're going to interact with the community more than once. I want them to come and sit down. And I mentioned Serendipity before. So yes, I can make direct intros, but the other thing that I can do is put people that I think will get along together in rooms all year round, and let those relationships grow and blossom without my interaction. If you don't engage with the community, you don't do that, you're probably not a good target to be a member. But so far, it's working out for us pretty well.
I love that. That's awesome, and no doubt, kicking off the business by buying beers is a great origin story. I think that's incredible. Because who doesn't like having a nice cold beer after a long day of work, especially around people that you enjoy spending time with, and can kind of like interact over shared interests and experiences. But because of that, obviously you've been quite successful, and the community has grown, and you've curated the right members at the right places. But now you got carriers, you got brokers, you got software developers, you got founders, you've got, people who are new in industry, you got veterans, you got people in town, you got people out of town. You just mentioned going and taking it global, right? And one thing I just picked out of what you were suggesting is that it's about like getting the right people together, not just getting more people together. In some cases, like more might actually cause a dilution of the quality of that intimate 15-person dinner. So my question for you is, when you think about the community at large with all these different personalities and locations and roles and expectations, like, how are you as the founder of Scout and directing all of this and keeping on top of the right relationships throughout the community? What do you do?
We make it very clear what our brand means to us. And I think that the culture is self-perpetuating if you take a strong enough stance on it. So we don't allow people that would, I don't know, for example, for denigrate somebody else, whether for whatever reason that may be sitting around the table. Negativity is not something that we're terribly interested in. We mostly have people that are around the table that are, dreaming, thinking about better things. How do we improve this? Or terribly positive people in most cases. And for whatever reason, those folks tend to draw more of the same. So while we've had some, you have some people show up, and every once in a while we get somebody that's like super salesy that just wants to like sell at the table, which is not like how we do it. We build relationships. We have a conversation with them about, what the expectations are. And we run the small groups as memberships. And every existing member gets to sign off on new members or not. So we occasionally have people get blocked because of their actions or behaviors. And that's the way that it should work. From an overall direction standpoint, when we set or drop a flag in a new city, we don't say, hey, we're going to that city. What we do is we wait for somebody that's in that city to come to us, and they say, hey, you did something pretty special here. I got to experience it. I want to do that in my city. How do we make that work? And then we give them the plan to do that. And we run the back office stuff. We enable them to create the type of community that we've created in the cities that we're already operating in. And then we support them. But I don't fly into every one of these meetings and run it and stand up at that end of the table. I don't do that. We enable local leaders to create communities like we have, and then we do what we can to pull them into the larger community.
Awesome.
I don't know how long it'll work, but it's working so far.
That's so awesome. It's obviously doing a lot of good things. I want to go back to something that you said, which I think for a lot of people is challenging, especially people who have quotas and pressure. When you're in the sell side, whether you're an insurance agent and you're staring down the 90-day renewal, barrel, and you got to make sure that you're not facing high cancellations, like, people are coming to the table, where you're selling software and you're trying to go land that new customer, or you're pitching your new product. Like, I know obviously Feather's a startup, right? Like, I'm always trying to sell. You mentioned that you create kind of like an excellence standard where it's not just pitch, right? But I'm just curious to get your thoughts on, how do you balance, especially as somebody who's been in the industry and building this yourself, like I need to slow roll the what's in it for me, and let me put in more of this effort. Let me not be so, running towards the pitch and selling, with also, you got to make money and put a roof over your head, right? And unless you're full philanthropic mode, most people need to work and make some money and spend their time. So how do you think about balancing that?
I'll break that in. I'll break my answer into two parts. The first part is that, in my experience, and this isn't everybody, but I'd say this definitely skews this way. When you are dealing with the founder of a company, or the CRO, or an SVP of sales or partnerships, the degree of direct sales pressure is different. And they are more interested in certainly closing somebody over time and opening up an account, but also in managing those relationships over the long term. We're in a relationship business. Everyone that's been here for a while understands that deal that closed in 8 months didn't close in 8 months. What happened is somebody shook their hand 2 years before, and had a drink with them at a conference, and then sat next to them somewhere else. And that ended up in that long term, that sale eventually, at least on the enterprise side. So I see less or more understanding and less of that from very senior folks. We tend to skew quite senior, so some of that kind of works itself out. I don't think that there's, and we don't profess to say like you can't speak about what you do or your product. In fact, we introduce ourselves at every table, every time we sit down. What do you do? What are you here for? How can we help you? So there will be people around the table saying like, hey, I'm selling a telematics product, looking to meet other people in the industry to have a conversation with them that might be interested. You're going to get a couple of people say, oh, I used to work in that, or oh, my friend Bree is looking for that, or hey, we got that. That's the type of interactions you have. Now, to go back to what I mentioned, we had people that were just like really just going around the table to each person, trying to directly sell them, getting a meeting with them, right? Yeah. It's not only is it ruining my dinner, it's also pretty ineffective.
Yeah.
And some of that is immaturity, and some of it is not understanding the industry and sort of how we position things. But we lean towards education versus expulsion. So we have nice conversations with them about what's expected.
Yeah, I think just going back to your point earlier, which is, you're a scout and advising on both sides of the table, right? You have the manufacturer and you have the carrier, you have the vendor, you have the buyer, you have the seller. Like, you're able to kind of like help people understand in a lot of ways how some of these interactions can be mutually beneficial and successful. And I think that's a pretty rare spot. And I would imagine really appreciated by the members, especially the young gunners that are just throwing POs across the table before we get our first salad, our first course. Anyway, I was hoping that we could talk a couple of minutes about something I saw you were sharing, and I obviously took a real interest in. Just the recent Scout conference. You said that recently it was the biggest one yet. So congrats to you and congrats to the whole team for doing that. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about the experience. Like, what did you like? What it was a challenge, and what are you thinking about doing differently in the future?
Yeah. So throwing large events is a challenge. So I told somebody the other day I get married every year. It's kind of what it is. Every year. Luckily, my wife does not plan the conference with me. Otherwise, like, things could go in the other direction. I think that it gets pretty crazy. I enjoy. There's nothing more satisfying to me than talking to some folks that came there about a very large deal that I ended up putting together. And sales to me is more partnerships. I'm not great at sales. I think I'm a good partnerships guy. I find ways for everyone to come out ahead. And I hear those stories, and to me, that's the most meaningful thing that I can do. Like, I know for a fact that the conference is driving some, high integer multiple of additional sales revenue in the ecosystem beyond what I'm paying for to produce it. And that's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. On the different side, we've grown and changed a little bit every year. So I like I think the number of early stage companies we put up is probably roughly the right number. So we did 55 across, I think, 6 showcases, if I remember correctly. And that's probably about right. Maybe we go up or down a tiny bit, but that's going to be where it is. We did do some roundtable discussions, which were very well received. So I think I will do more of those. We had workshops the day before that also very well received. We just did an afternoon. We're going to do a full day, I think, next year. And the last thing, we allowed this year, but probably I need to be supporting it or encouraging it versus just allowing it. We have some of our partners are in suites. So we have a lower.com field house, which is the soccer stadium in Columbus, Ohio. It's beautiful. And in the suites, if you're at a certain level of partnership, you have access to one of these things, and that's where you can take meetings and store your stuff. They have room for like 15 people. So we are going to encourage folks with those to organize their own small roundtables and mini events. And we're going to support them to call it the community-driven event series or something like that. But that's in thinking about more ways to give back to the community, the things that they want, and let them try and test more things and provide an open platform for that. That's something that I'd really like to do.
That's awesome. I know that the intimate settings, like a lot of the best things happen in the hallway conversations. And so if you can generate that kind of experience by bringing people into small, intimate settings, to your point about like small roundtable dinners. I remember I was in a prior life leading a sales organization and hosting CROs in different cities, and we, to your point, would bring people together, and it was not a pitch to the company of the company, but it was more of like a sharing of ideas, kind of like facilitating a hive mind on a couple of key topics that are relevant to everybody at that seniority level. And it's just amazing what comes out of it. So I totally can relate to that. I'm new, and I think Feather, I'm new-ish, but definitely, as we're building Feather, thinking about the insurance industry as an area where we think we might be able to add value, right? Like this is very much trust-driven. Insurance policies, in a lot of cases, life insurance, my car insurance, these are things that I have to go have. But I got a lot of people who are trying to go and sell me policies. And so, I work with people that I can trust, that are people that I feel like are adding value to me. And so I think that relationship is why we feel this is a really important place for us and Feather. But you, as an expert in the space, I thought maybe you could shed a little bit of light, especially for the people that are non-insurance experts who will listen to this, right? What are you seeing in the insurance industry today, specifically around disruptive trends? And what are some of the things technology-wise? What's exciting you about the industry in general?
There's things that are exciting me, and then there's some disruptive trends. So I'll bucket those a little bit differently.
Okay.
And it'll be clear why. So I think what I'm most excited about now is that for a long time the insurance industry there's a lot of opportunity for improvement. So that they do well. It's a $8 trillion a year industry, half of which is within the US, which is just outrageous. It's a lot of business happens there. There are new types of policies and products that I'm fascinated by in the E&S and specialty market. So some things are like parametric weather products. If it hails, you get paid out this much in your zip code or whatever, like sort of tracked it is. So those new products, and we had one that was on stage that was a parametric weather product around power outages for restaurants. Imagine if the power goes out for 48 hours and you lose your walk-in cooler at a restaurant. That is very challenging. So having a product that pays out immediately based on that power outage gives you the ability to continue to run your business when that comes back on, versus waiting for some time for a payout and an evaluation of everything that was in there. And sometimes these are paired together. So I think that the parametric insurance products are really interesting. I think that embedded insurance is something that's been happening for a very long time, but they're embedding it in more places. I did not carry event insurance on my conference this year, but I should. I should have that everywhere. I should just do it, whether people are going to buy it or not, because we work in insurance. So I think particularly in E&S and specialty, they're creating this creation of all these whole new special products that many people outside of insurance, financial services, or large commercial industries are not going to be aware of, because it's home, life, auto, right? Maybe umbrella, maybe pet, maybe some other things that are like benefits, but that's pretty exciting. And then on a disruptive trend that is going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out. So there is a lot happening with a lot of talk, people talking about AI. There's a lot of products that are being released that can use AI to do things. Some of the things that they purport to do are to reduce costs through the reduction in manual effort, particularly administrative type work. Now, within insurance, particularly in the carrier side, traditionally, many folks that move up through the ranks start in those roles. If the volume of those roles is going to shrink dramatically, what it's going to do is interrupt the way, like the promotion cycle and the access to people that understand at the base level how insurance works and goes together for those mid-level management, and sort of, you're going to have fewer high potential individuals to move into mid-management and executive roles, because you're going to have fewer folks that have an implicit understanding of the insurance industry at that particular company. And I know the MBAs are saying like, well, I have an MBA, I could just take that role, and I get it. But you also need folks that not just understand business, have a really good understanding of insurance. So interested to see where that goes.
So that's a really important topic. I think everybody across every industry is thinking is like, how is automation and technology impacting? And it impacts, to your point, the deep knowledge that's kind of like when you turn the wrenches and you're at the ground floor, you figure all, I remember reading an article from Entrepreneur magazine about the CEO of the Boston Zoo. And he said the only reason he was a good CEO was because he started off by cleaning the cages, and he worked his way up. So I totally get that. But there's also this concept of like, it's coming fast and furious, and especially the way that I'm seeing, or at least I'm predicting AI and the major impact in relationships. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Is like, when you automate a lot of this, you lose a lot of the authenticity. And you lose a lot of the trust because you take the human out of the picture. And even in what you're talking about, you might lose a lot of like the depth and the tribal knowledge in some areas that really makes these companies, full, right? Like having those people's roles maybe automated fully. But the problem I'm seeing is that, especially when it comes to recruiting, I got 3,000 applications that came in for one job I opened up. And how do you even navigate through all of that? But AI is allowing a lot of this automation. In a lot of cases, it's, I think, causing a lot of almost like dulling, and like it's at a cost of personalization. And there's a lot that people are saying, I got personalized email sequences and, all of that's coming out. But at the end of the day, you can't automate a deep quality connection with somebody, a trusted relationship. It comes from effort, right? So I'm seeing that happen in our space, which is creating an opportunity wherein insights can come to people. People have to take it to the last mile. But I'm curious to get your take on, like, is there a solution? So if we take it back to the insurance industry and it being disruptive, like, what are the carriers talking about? I know everyone wants to do it for lower costs, and people are the biggest cost for sure in our bottom line. But what are you seeing as a potential opportunity, or what's your thoughts there?
So the question's like biggest opportunities for the use of AI within the carrier world?
Yeah, I mean, like, how are they counteracting this concern that you're talking about, which is like, if you get rid of that bottom tier and you lose the tribal knowledge, like.
Well, I am a adherent to believe or thinking through mental models. And so if you look at second and third order effects, what's going to happen? So they, in many cases, are not firing people, which is the right thing to do. What they're doing is not replacing people. So relying on recidivism, or relying on the people not to be replaced. And in some cases, these are very high turnover jobs, particularly call centers. Nobody really wants that job anyway. So like it's okay. But what happens then? How many managers do you need? Oh, now the middle management layer is shrinking, right? You don't need as many people managers. And then when the middle management layer shrinks to some extent, now what shrinks? Now your upper middle management, your VPs and directors, now we need fewer of those, right? So there is like a long-term third and fourth order effect of the entire structure of the company compacting. Now there's still going to be one CEO and one CX, whatever it is right there. But I think that that's going to be a real challenge. And I haven't heard anyone talk about this at all, because I think it's probably not going to be the type of thing they want to be quoted about. But that's if you can grow to support the existing workforce that dramatically, that's not going to be a cost reduction use of AI or any other automation technology. That's going to be driven through an increase in your top line. So if you find a way to underwrite exceptionally better, or to source new policyholders in some really effective way, or develop products, new and novel products that are very profitable. These things are all opportunities, and you can do that and try and maintain the same size of the workforce, but it's going to be a balance who wants to do it and who doesn't. There are some major carriers that are notorious for laying people off, entire organizations, when they don't know what to do with them. And then there's others that haven't had layoffs for 20 years that, have publicly stated that they'll never do that again, and just find, not that they always keep their word on those things, but I don't know what the answer is. I think it's pretty interesting, but there are a lot of effects that I think are not being weighed yet.
Yeah, I have only been a casualty of a reduction in force as a spreadsheet exercise from someone in finance looking at Excel and saying, where is the highest paid people and how do we go and collapse it? So it's tough, especially when you care a lot about what you do. So I actually really empathize with the people that go through that struggle. And I kind of think that there is hey, how do I sharpen my skills and some of the automation so I can 10x myself? So can I lean into some of this, right? In some ways, and relationship intelligence at the heart, right? So you can't necessarily, if the whole division gets chopped, that's going to be a tough thing to go fight that battle. But in general, as you're creating upward mobility in your career, a lot of that comes with people work with people they trust and that they like. And so are you investing in your peers? Are you investing in your mentors? Are you investing in your staff? Are you investing in the janitor, right? Are you putting in deposits to create a better ecosystem? And I think that's one of the things I'm really excited about, at least, from what we're building, not just about building better customer and client relationships and being a CRM for deals, but being a system that allows people to be more thoughtful and intentional across the ecosystem of relationships that throughout our whole lives help us succeed. And quality relationships, they require a lot of trust. I wanted to, and we, in a lot of these conversations, ask thought leaders like yourself, if there's a story that comes to mind, throughout your, obviously you've had a lot of chapters in your career so far, but a trusted relationship, one where you've built that, you could tell us a story about, it's had a big impact on your success.
Let's see, so this is, you can characterize it as my success. I like seeing others succeed. I find a lot of value in that. So let me tell you a story about a relationships that have spanned now a very, very, very long time. So my mom, actually my godmother, she's my godmother. She was my mom's best friend growing up, and her mother was my grandmother's best friend. I reconnected with her at my brother's graduation, which was, 15 years ago or something like that at this point, high school graduation. And she was like, oh, my son, who I'd never met, though we lived in the same town, he's about 10 years younger than me, is moving to Denver. I lived in Denver. It's like, you should meet him. I was like, what does he do? He's like, well, he's got a degree in business, and he's looking for a sales job. I was like, well, I'm looking for a sales guy. That's amazing. I was running my own company at that time, and we were looking for somebody to do sales and partnership work. Small companies, I think, at that point, I think we had 4 or 5 of us. And I met him, and we hit it off, and he came to work with me. And he worked with me at that company for a number of years until we closed the company. Which often happens to small companies, for those of you who haven't experienced that. And then I moved, I got a role doing something else. I was, at this point, doing that was business selling books. My next one, I was at a company that commercialized technology out of the US Energy Labs. And I was brought on because I have a degree in chemistry. And so I was working in developing novel materials, just like all sorts of things. I won't get into it. But I was running a research lab, essentially very small, but I needed some help. I ended up hiring him again. So we brought him in, and he would go with me, and he'd be kind of frontline sales, outreach. I was doing technical sales work and also all the product management work of the company. And the CEO there was great. I moved, and we've kept in touch. So I basically helped him as a business guy learn enough chemistry and water chemistry to build a career in that industry, and that's what he's doing now. He sells large water treatment systems in Colorado, and that's great. We maintain that relationship. He's been to my house for Thanksgiving, and we wouldn't have that. And then I went to work at Progressive, and there I happened to meet somebody who I also got into that sort of mentor-mentee relationship with, and I was doing AI work there, and she was an analyst. And I helped her grow into a data scientist and got her into the role and got her a promotion. And I mean, she did all these things. I helped guide her. I helped a lot of folks in that field find their next role internally and externally. And then she wanted to move to Denver. So what did I do? But I said, hey, you should meet my friend Ryan. And they hit it off. And I will be giving a toast at their wedding on Sunday.
What? I just got chills, man. That's so awesome. I love it.
So Sunday they're getting married, and they're both from this area, but they met in Denver. And I've not played matchmaker very much, but they, through the parts of their careers that I saw them, I believed in them and who they were, and I thought that they would, also benefit from getting together, and it seems like they agreed.
So let me get this straight. Right carrier needs right InsurTech startup. Call my man Chris. And if you're looking for the right relationship romantically, call my man Chris. I mean, talk about Cupid right there. That's awesome. I love it. But you're creating so much value in people's lives, right? Like at the end of the day, these are the things that, I kind of profess that, and it's proven, the data proves that, like, we live longer when we have higher quality connection. It literally is the number one thing that, creates these blue zones for, centenarians. And like, we're social creatures, and we create joyful moments. And yeah, we win. Like, of course we want to go and, maybe you got different goals. You want to buy the car, you want a house, you want a promotion, you want some time to spend on the weekends with your kids. But man, if we all just kind of leaned into, to your point, helping your people out, like, creates better lives for everybody. I love that you're embodying that. That's such a good story. And as we kind of come to the conclusion here, there's been a lot of great tidbits of information from across the industry, and how to build meaningful interaction between multiple people, and bringing the right people together, and making sure everyone's winning and coming out on top, and creating accountability too. I loved every aspect of everything we've talked about, but I also really would love if we can wrap with one thing you can share with the audience, one actionable takeaway. So what can I put into my practice today that helps me, that you do, that I can go build more meaningful and nurture more meaningful relationships?
There's so much. I think that the one thing that I try and keep in mind is that everyone I meet, everyone I interact with, I think of how and what I can give to them without any expectation of getting anything back. And I think that is really important, in that people become embittered if they're expecting some sort of return on everything. And I don't understand why they would, but it seems like that happens. And I think if you go into a new relationship with the mindset that I may or may not have a long-term relationship with this person, but for today, what can I do to help them? I think is a great way to walk through life.
Yeah, it is. It's been a theme through pretty much everything that you've been talking about. So I can definitely vouch for the fact that it's not just an idea. It's something that obviously makes up who you are, right? Give more than you take, leave more than you take out. Yeah. It will create an amazing world if everybody takes that insight and just takes one action to add value to somebody in their ecosystem. So thank you, Chris. This has been awesome. The insights have been great. I know you got a lot going on, so carving out time with me, I'm I'm very appreciative. I'm sure everyone that's going to listen is going to be fired up about it. And of course, the stories that you've shared and being deliberate about how we manage professional interactions and investing in the right ways, it really matters. And for anyone that's out there that's listening, that's found value in what we've talked about, of course, we'd love to hear more from your opinion. So drop some comments, drop some ideas. How are you adding value to the people you care about? And if you'd like to see how the intersection of technology and being intentional, that's where Feather fits in. So head over to www.feather.vip, check out what we're building, reach out to me, happy to answer any questions. And of course, until next time, this has been Birds of a Feather. My name's Jeremy. Thanks so much for joining us.